Yeah, once again, good morning. Welcome back, to our second day of discussions. I hope you had a restful night yesterday. You enjoyed yourself on the surroundings of Abidjan, and also you had a sample of good food here in Abidjan. We're talking about food because our discussion today is going to be on agriculture. And the theme of our discussion is the challenges and opportunities for agriculture value chains in Africa. And what we're going to do is to try and unpack, this theme. And to do this, there's going to be Madam Wambui Gichuri, who is our Director of Water and Sanitation Department here at the bank, who's going to give us a keynote address. And her keynote address is going to be the impact of agriculture and value chains investments in Africa. Following that, and maybe Madam, you could just show your hand. There's only one Madam there.
Yes.
We're being gender insensitive.
Something to note.
So that's the Director, Madam Gichuri. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Girma Kumbi, to do a presentation, and that presentation is going to be on support to agriculture value chains development. Very important discussion there. After that, I'm going to ask now our distinct panelists. And I think at this point, I would like to introduce them. And we have got Mr. Fabrizio Felloni. You can just show your hand so that people should see you. Mr. Felloni is the Deputy Director at the Independent Office of Evaluation of IFAD, and has been there since September 2016. He was previously a lead evaluation officer at IFAD, specializing in evaluation of the independent evaluation of the Office of the United Nations Development Program. He has got a vast experience in agriculture evaluation, and I think we're very happy, to have him here, for our discussion this morning. And then, business communities, to engage in value chains in agriculture. So what we want to ask our panelists today is, despite all this interest that is happening in agriculture on value chains, and despite the government's efforts in our countries in trying to push for value chains, many African countries are still trapped in producing low-skilled, low-value agriculture products and services, and they are struggling to obtain significant value-added shares in both domestic and local trade. Why is this the case? I think, our panelists are going to help us do that. So before I speak too much, I'm going to invite Madam Gichuri to come here and make a keynote presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Chair said, my name is Wambui. I'm Director for Water Development and Sanitation. I'm here representing Jennifer Blanke, our Vice President. It would be good to see that slide. Our presentation today is on nutrition and inclusion, a multisectoral approach, why we all need to work together as multiple sectors to be able to address the issue of malnutrition in Africa. We wanted to start our presentation by showing a 3.5-minute video. Can someone help us to start that? And then I will come back to the slides and try to do them in about 12 minutes. I will skip some because the video will have addressed many of them.
African economies have been growing significantly over the past decade, despite the economic headwinds that Africa faces, and in fact the rest of the world. African economies remain quite resilient. Take a look at all of our cities. You will see very rising skyscrapers, But behind these rising skyscrapers lies a different story. 20 out of 24 countries that have stunting rates of over 40% lie in Africa. In fact, 22 out of the 34 countries that account for over 90% of the global stunting are found in Africa. The numbers are even more troubling. Today, we have 58 million children that are stunted in Africa. We have 14 million children that are also wasted, and we have 10 million children that are obese. These are numbers that must change, and that must change very, very fast. Because stunted children today leads to stunted economies tomorrow. The numbers, again, are quite worrying. Sub-Saharan Africa alone loses $25 billion a year because of poor nutrition. At a continental level, Africa loses about 11% of its GDP because of poor nutrition. The evidence, therefore, is very clear. Boosting nutrition will boost the economies. That is why I believe that we must change the way we look at nutrition. It is not just a social issue. Nutrition is about economic issues. It's really about how we invest in infrastructure, what I call gray matter infrastructure. If our children are well fed, their brains develop. They are better able to work in schools, learn in school, perform better. Everybody gains. So therefore, we must invest in gray matter infrastructure. That is why I have joined forces at the African Development Bank with former President of Ghana, President Koffi, with former United Nations Secretary General Koffi Annan, with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with the Big Win Philanthropy, with the Dangote Foundation, and in fact also with the African Union, to create what we call the African Leaders for Nutrition. The goal is simple: to mobilize political action to end the malnutrition and stunting that we see in Africa today. I am a member of the Global Panel for Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition. We have generated overwhelming evidence of what must be done to tackle malnutrition. What is needed now is action, and that action has to be fast. We must leave a better legacy, not a legacy of stunted children, not a legacy of stunted economies. We must leave a legacy of boisterous economies with children that are very well fed. Only then can the future be bright. Invest in nutrition today and create a better future for Africa and the world. I thank you.
So I'll start with the the outline, and very quickly we'll talk about the nutrition landscape in Africa. Much of that has been covered by the President. Why nutrition matters, he also covered that. Why a multisectoral approach, and examples of what the bank is doing, as well as conclusions and some suggestions on the way forward. So in terms of main messages, I can't see there. I should have done better slides. Maybe I see. I can see there? Okay. So the main messages are nutrition is key to good health and strong economies in Africa. And it's also a basic human right. And addressing the burden of malnutrition and realizing its full potential towards human health and development requires involvement of multi-sector approaches. I think you know this. Today we'll just give a few examples. And that kind of approach will also not just strengthen nutrition, but also supports inclusion of the most vulnerable, including women, children, youth, girls, and the most poor. And also addressing malnutrition is an imperative for achieving the MDGs. And then we'll talk a bit about the bank strategy and how high fives and the increasing focus by the bank on nutrition-sensitive programs. So the landscape, I'll go very quickly. As the President mentioned, there is high commitment, there is high leadership, but progress has been quite slow over the last 2 decades. 59 million children stunted in Africa, overweight children, 10 million in 2017, and about 14 million suffering from wasting. And looking at progress across regions, this graph is quite concerning. If you look at the regions, look at the other regions, like in Asia and Latin America have actually experienced significant drops. Asia by 36%, and Latin America by 44%. And in Africa, between 2000 and 2016, it's actually increased by 17%. And why is that? We found that in Latin America and in South Asia, it's taken strong leadership, which we have. It's also taken a well-planned multi-sectoral program as well as resources, and it would be interesting to hear what role those factors have played in undermining progress in Africa. I wanted to show very quickly the differences in sub-regions. Overall, of course, the story is one that's very concerning, as we said. But what explains the regional differences? Very high in all regions, but you'll notice that in East Africa, by the way, that the countries where the dot falls is not about the country, it's about the region. But if you look at East Africa, about 36%. If you look at Central Africa, about 32%. Why is that? And some of the reasons are like in Central African region, many countries, as you know, are fragile states, and where programs for nutrition are weak, short-term, because they are involved in managing the crisis that they have to deal with every day, and also weak institutions. Now, in Sahel and the Horn of Africa, as you know, also recurrent drought could explain the low levels of malnutrition. But what's happening in the countries where, in the specific countries where there has been progress, and there are some countries, in fact, where there is some progress, like Tanzania, Rwanda, Senegal, it's because they have multi-sectoral nutrition plans and have put out nutrition. They have given high priority to nutrition and is involving several of their sectors, not just agriculture and health, in addressing this issue. And why does it matter? I think the president made a strong case that it's about social, but also about economic development. It's really about development. And it matters because it's a huge challenge we have to address, but it's also an opportunity for action and investment in sustainable development. It's key to achieving SDGs, essential to poverty reduction and inclusive growth. And the president also mentioned the huge losses in GDP, 11%. That's, it's incredible. And also that because other examples of some losses or why it's important is 1% loss in adult height due to childhood stunting is associated with 1.4% loss in productivity. Again, huge numbers. But the good one point to make is that investing in nutrition, the benefit cost ratio is really, really high. I think rarely do you see cost-benefit ratios of such magnitude. So huge benefits. We just need to make sure we prioritize resources, programs, etc. Now, for the bank in particular, of course, it aligns very well with the critical strategies. It's AfDB's 10-year strategy, the human capital strategy, as well as the Feed Africa strategy. So it's really plugged. We have it exactly where we would like it to be. Let's think very carefully, again, on why we're not making progress. Now, looking at the nutrition and the high fives, I think it's linked with all the high fives, in fact. If you start with Feed Africa, the Feed Africa has identified eliminating hunger and malnutrition as one of its key goals. If you look at improve the quality of life of the people of Africa, improved nutrition will improve physical health and cognitive development. It will contribute to increased educational attainment, productivity, etc. If you look at industrialized Africa, this is important in contributing to enhanced nutrition and gray matter infrastructure through job creation, through helping families improve food consumption and health for children. It will also contribute to nutrition systems, contribute to developing medium and small-scale enterprises which can supply safe, diverse, and nutritious foods. If you look at Integrate Africa, and it will contribute to improve nutrition through enhanced regional food systems, promoting regional trade, harmonizing quality assurance standards, scaling up regional infrastructure investment, and supporting regional agricultural value chains. And finally, if you look at Light Up Africa, as you know, power is critical to building and maintaining value chains within safe, diverse, and nutritious food systems, including through mechanized agriculture and cold chain equipment, among others. If you look at, this is very briefly determinants of nutrition. These are very well known to many of you in the room. And this framework outlines how the various factors affect children's nutritional status, including undernutrition and overnutrition, and that the immediate causes are related to inadequate dietary intake, exposure to disease and related illnesses, and these are mostly dealt with through the health sector. Then you have the underlying causes that relate to households and the community, which affect household food security, maternal and child care practices, and the health environment. And this is where we start seeing the role of multiple sectors, and such as agriculture, water supply, sanitation, and hygiene, social protection, education, as well as gender, as well as the emergency context, where if this is happening in stable environments, it's going to be very different than when it's happening in emergency context. And there are, of course, economic, social, and environmental factors that compound the environment. And what this points to, of course, is the need for, again, a multisectoral approach, and which will also not just contribute to improving nutrition, but also contribute to strengthening inclusion. As you know, the bank has set up a multisectoral task force on nutrition with focal points from different departments. And as you saw, very high commitment from the president towards improving nutrition. And the next few slides will give examples of linkages. I mentioned sectors. I mentioned health, social protection, water, agriculture, education. There are many, but we will just touch on a few. I had also just mentioned in the previous slide that interventions in the health sector are the ones that deal with the most immediate causes of undernutrition, such as inadequate dietary intake and ill health. And interventions from the health sector include, there are many, but just point a few, is breastfeeding, complementary feeding promotion, management of severe acute malnutrition, management of moderate acute malnutrition, use of supplementation, etc., and deworming. There are many. We wanted to highlight those. We also mentioned social protection, and this is also about socioeconomic inequality in malnutrition is associated with poverty, poor health care, regional disparities, and obviously a general access to lack of services such as water, sanitation, hygiene, etc. And the role of social protection programs and policies is to shield vulnerable populations from shocks when they occur, so as to mitigate their impacts. And some of the ways that social protection can promote inclusion include increasing accessibility of nutritious food, increasing participation of the population in healthcare, and stabilizing household income, especially in times of crisis, and promoting the use of income for nutritional-related needs, and of course to target the nutritionally vulnerable, as well as scaling up social safety nets. This is a second slide continuing to show the linkages. WASH, that's my sector, very strongly linked to issues of nutrition, malnutrition. About 50% of all malnutrition is associated with diarrhea related to unsafe water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. And the number of deaths caused directly and indirectly by malnutrition that induced by unsafe water, sanitation, and poor hygiene is a staggering 860,000 people a year for children, children a year for children under 5. And there are many interventions. I mentioned a few. Over the past years, the countries have focused on increasing access, and we've seen significant significant increase in the proportion of people with water, with access to water. It's not the same for sanitation, but there are countries that have done a good job of increasing access. What we have found to be a big problem is that access has not been accompanied by quality, so we have large-scale issues of water quality, so you're giving people water that doesn't necessarily support good health. And of course, sanitation, where I think we made progress in some countries, but overall there was a decline. Promoting household water treatment, the way we handle water at household level determines you may get actually good quality water, and the way you handle it in the household may reduce its quality. Hand washing, awfully important, and also ensuring continuous supply so that people don't revert to an improved system. Now, in agriculture, of course, as the most direct influence with the majority of households where they reside, it's the first contact with the entry point. Agriculture and nutrition share food as a common entry point. And it really starts with what we eat, the products we produce in the agriculture sector. So working on our food systems, in terms of how we produce, how we collect, store, transport, and distribute, we can improve our diets, our health, and nutrition. Now, in terms of am I still in good time?
You've got 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. The third one is gender. This is very important. I'll spend a few minutes here, even if I need to end the. So empowering women is going to lead to improved nutrition outcomes, and for themselves, their families, and communities. And they are the custodians of food and nutritional security. They produce 60% of subsistence crops in developing countries, but are responsible for half of the world's food production. But they only hold 2% of the lands. And adequate nutrition for women will boost their immunity, reduce infections. We also point out education is critical to nutrition. And education is responsible for 43% of global reduction in malnutrition between 1970 and 1995. So awfully important to make sure women have access to education. And where we see that where families in which women have more control over income, assets, and resources, they're going to be better nourished, and farming families grow more food. Now, something I should have included here. Imagine if women had equal access to productive assets as men, if they were integrated in all the decision-making processes pertaining to production, transformation, and marketing. Agricultural productivity would be enhanced by 30%, and the number of people suffering from chronic hunger in developing countries would decrease by an average of 15%. So the main message here is that programs targeting nutritional availability and sustainability should include gender equality outcomes and outputs. And nutrition is not just a goal to fight poverty and strengthen development of a nation's human capital. It's at the same time a powerful practical tool to improve female status and reduce gender inequalities across generations. This is really important. It's in the message that we have stunted children today. Our economies cannot compete in future. These are just some examples of water projects. I don't know if I have another minute. We have many examples. We chose these ones, a water project, and a water and agriculture project in Nigeria, a health project in Sudan, and an agriculture project in Mali. And on the right, we have the collaboration between the various sectors, agriculture, nutrition, and some figures on access, and integration of reproductive health, cancer, and nutrition interventions, supporting micronutrient deficiency programs, growth monitoring of children under 5. Sorry to rush. These are also, we used examples. These are lending. We also obviously are doing a lot of non-lending. The bank is a technical institution. We have money, but more than money, we have technical knowledge, partnerships, convening, comparative advantages in convening. So these are some of the non-lending activities we do. This is a very small number. The real number is quite big. Something on monitoring and evaluation. It's actually a process under development. Those of you in the room will know that we're still in the process of drafting TORs to develop an M&E framework, recruiting people that will then help us in tracking the results in the action plans. These are the partnerships. There are many, many partnerships, very engaged in productive activities with the bank based on their comparative advantages. And in terms of conclusion, I think what we have seen is that sometimes it's about money. It's not always about money, though. It's probably more about strong leadership. That is what you need to make a difference. We need innovation in financing, strategy implementation, especially in transition states where they're having to deal with day-to-day issues and not able to focus on medium or long-term development. Gender mainstreaming, I couldn't emphasize that more. It's really important in all our programs, not just nutrition. And having integrated approaches, I think we know by now, single sector approaches will not work. I also want to add that to make sure we mainstream gender in everything we do, and clearly we need to, high levels of nutrition will be important in achieving the SDG targets and Africa Agenda 23. And I wanted to add, finish by the President's quote, stunted children today will lead to stunted economies tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention, and apologies for going above the 15 minutes. Thank you.
No. Don't grab, no. This is a sad story. Malnutrition is a sad story, so why should we be clapping, feeling happy about this? I think we should be angry, So, I don't know about you. We all look very nice fed here. I've got my own experiences from the country I come from. I come from a small country, Malawi. And when these statistics are being mentioned, it just reasons within my mind that we really have a serious problem. If you'd move out of Abidjan here, another 50 kilometers, from the main town here, you now see, these numbers that are being talked about, coming, true. That indeed, I think Africa has got a problem. 51 million children stunted. That's a very serious issue. And we really need to hold our hands, to make sure that we find a way of solving these challenges. And I really like Gichuri, you are one of the emphasis in your PowerPoint presentation regarding, empowering women, which is very important, to start tackling this problem. So I think we should not lose these, pointers that teachers mentioned, so that when time comes, to start integrating, our panels, I think let's discuss these issues in depth, and see what you can carry home with us when you go back to our countries, to start changing things. At this point, I'm going to ask Dr. Girma, to come and make a presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again to the second day of the evaluation week. My name is Girma Kumbi. I'm working in the Independent Development Evaluation of the African Development Bank. So the content of the presentation has basically 4 parts. First, I will introduce the purpose and scope and methodology of the evaluation. The second part deals with the key finding of this evaluation, and thirdly is what are the success factors for the agriculture value chain development. So to start with this first part, as you know, agriculture characterizes many of the African economy in terms of contribution to GDP, generation of employment, as well as the foreign currency earnings. So the African Development Bank and other development donors have been supporting this sector for a long time. In particular, the bank recently heightened its focus on agriculture through its new strategy, which is called Feed Africa strategy, which is going to increase the funding to $24 billion over the next 10 years. So at the heart of this strategy, value chain approach is going to be implemented throughout this strategy. So our evaluation is going to provide lessons and experience for the successful implementation of this strategy. So as such, we didn't evaluate specific projects or programs, but we looked at what are the success factors for implementing value chain development in Africa in general. And the scope of the evaluation cover around 10 years. It covered all bank intervention from 2005 to 2016. So we looked at our operations and strategies and policies around in this period. The source of evidence for our evaluation basically comes mainly from three areas. First, we conducted detailed literature review, both gray and academic literature around value chain development, particularly in agriculture sector. And we'll look at also all policy strategies that has been designed over the last 10 years by the bank as well as the other development donors, which can support the commercial agriculture and hence agriculture value chain development. And we complemented this desk review with the 9-country case studies, and as you can see on the screen, we try to represent as much as possible different geographic areas, different value chain in the continent. So we have been involved, did an interview with the direct beneficiaries and other key stakeholders who are working in these 9 countries. Okay. Now, regarding our analytical framework, so we developed a generic theory of change that can explain how the bank can achieve expected development result in agricultural value chain development. That is a very detailed one. I didn't present here, but I just took part of this theory of change, which we much focus on in our analysis. And with this component, what we call them the fundamentals and the enablers, we identified through the desk reviews as well as through our 9-country case studies. So these are the areas where we found as the success, where the success factors lie. So we looked at how this has been addressed throughout the bank operations in general. So the fundamentals are 5, as you can see: value chain analysis, profitability, responsiveness to market, inclusiveness, and sustained impact. And the enablers are mostly the infrastructure, policy and regulatory environment, business support, access to finance, partnership among different value chain actors. So I think by this take as the second part of the presentation, where I briefly make a presentation on the findings around these 5 fundamentals and 5 enablers in general. So the first fundamental which should be addressed in any design of agricultural value chain intervention is value chain analysis. So if we conduct adequate value chain analysis, it helps us to use our resources effectively and efficiently, as well as address the development needs. So the comprehensive value chain analysis about the constraint, distribution of the value added, or the adequate sector stakeholder analysis who are involving at different segments of the value chain, what are the risks and assumptions involved in that particular intervention. These are an important issues that we find. For example, in Zambia there is a cashew nut project which focuses on cashew nut production, but it's important also to look at how this production is absorbed both in the regional as well as international market. Usually we focus on the international market for the export items, but if the price fluctuates around the international market, how we can address it, how can we find another market at regional or local level. So the value chain analysis is so critical. The second important factor is about when we design intervention in agricultural value chain, we have to focus on the profitability, because if you want to see agriculture as a business, all value chain actor has to be gained to some extent from this intervention, from that operation in general. So often the interventions are focusing on increasing production and productivity, which is very important, but not adequately addressing how each value chain actors are profitable from this value chain. If there is a win and loser situation, I think the success of the intervention is going to be questionable. That's one. So, in general, profitability is seen as a key principle for upgrading any value chain at all. So conducting like an economic rate of return or internal rate of return for the project is not adequate. So we have to go beyond that and see how each actors are benefiting out of that. Another fundamental is responsiveness to markets. This refers to particularly the capacity of that value chain and the intervention to respond to changes in market signal. Sometimes we simply design a product, but if it has no adequate adaptive learning mechanism in the project, it is difficult to respond to uncertain situation, like if there is change in the value chain context, like international market price and so on. So in this case, our finding focus addresses basically the integration of robust M&E system into the design of the interventions in line with the theory of change of the value chain, not only the project itself. So we have to integrate into, for example, if we take cocoa, when we design intervention in cocoa, we have to look at the theory of change of the cocoa industry in general, not only that particular value chain. So other fundamental is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is very important, how we engage the all stake, particularly the poor farmer, as well as the woman used into the value chain. This is a critical and important point. The bank has demonstrated strongly about inclusiveness in overarching strategies like the 10-year strategy, bank's gender strategy, as well as the strategy for jobs for use. So that's going in the right direction, and what is important is sometimes intervention only allocate like quotas to these marginalized groups, but that allocation of quotas is not enough to address, particularly to properly distribute the benefit of that value chain. We have to go beyond the quotas and put a mechanism or a targeting mechanism so that the marginalized group benefit out of the development efforts. Another important point is on sustainability. As all you know, it's okay. The benefit from the intervention should be sustainable for the beneficiaries. Otherwise, we do not achieve the required desired goal. So for this, I think the securing the ownership of the beneficiaries are important. Otherwise, infrastructure we build will not be properly maintained and deliver the expected result. The second thing related to conducting adequate value chain analysis and make sure that all stakeholders participated in all process of the value chain development. So our finding revolve around these issues. I will briefly present also what are the enablers here. What I discussed so far is related to how we can ensure, particularly in terms of knowledge work, so that the intervention we design becomes successful when we implement. But so what kind of intervention also we need to support the value chain? Around that there we identified again 5 areas. It can be more than that, but we found these are the key one. The first one is on infrastructure and the technology development, policy and the regulatory environment, access to finance, partnership among value chain actors as well as business support. So in terms of infrastructure, yes, which the bank has significantly provided infrastructure development for agriculture in Africa through feeder road, irrigation development, market shed, and the other infrastructure that support the development of agriculture sector. So overall, our finding shows that there is a positive contribution of this infrastructure, which it's a key component for value chain development, but we say it's not sufficient. Building infrastructure alone is not sufficient. We have to link it to the markets and make sure that we get the adequate benefits. And also on the other side, in terms of technology, we focus much on getting the improved seeds and fertilizer and so on, but there is no much in terms of using the information technologies, particularly in terms of sharing information among the value chain actors. So the second enabler is policy and regulatory framework. I think, as you know, most value chain actors, they operate under a given policy and a regulatory environment. And if this policy and regulatory environment is not facilitating, or if they create a bottleneck, it's difficult for the private sector to engage in the value chain development. So overall, there is a need for more support in these areas, particularly in conducting policy dialogue with the countries so that the enabling environment will be conducive for the value chain actors in general. So with some countries like in Morocco and Rwanda, the evaluation finds there is a positive contribution of bank support towards improving the policy environment for the value chain to act. So overall, when we look at in sub-Saharan Africa, I think the figure is not encouraging around that, so we have to improve a lot of things in terms of putting in place the enabling environment for the value chain actors. Other enabler is the business support. This is basically related to this developing the skill of the value chain actor in a different front so that they become competitive in the value chain. This is related to about financial management, monitoring and evaluation, their capacity to develop viable business, all this, because the value chain is about competitiveness. It's not only about farm, it's also about non-farm activities. So we need, I think, to build the capacity of the value chain actors in terms of accessing the market. How can we build a network? How we can promote different business models? How we can support them, particularly when there is a contract farming involved. It is important to have adequate scale to negotiate their terms. Well, access to finance, as you know, it's important in agriculture. This is the area also which is very important. So far, we looked at access to finance for the producer and so on, but other value chain actors, rather such as transporter, wholesaler, trader, also need financing to develop that particular value chain. So where the bank provides support for the agriculture production, there huge benefit has been achieved And there are examples like in Rwanda, DRC, and Morocco around this. So access to finance is one of the enablers for value chain development. The last one is creating network partnership among the value chain actors. So these are because value chain there are different stakeholders who are involved. If they don't know each other very well, if there is a difference in the market power, in a different, the trust between them, all these are important. So we have to bring the value chain actors together in a different mechanism so that creates a transparency in the functioning of the value chain. So we have to work around that in creating the partnership among the value chain. There are good examples, for example, again in Rwanda on this. Okay, now this brings us to the third part of the presentation. It's about, okay, what we learn out of this evaluation. We had identified about 4 lessons which are key. The first one is conducting comprehensive value chain analysis in project design or other intervention, and adapting that during the implementation is critical for successes in general because of change in market factor and so on. That will help us to identify all the profitability, the stakeholder mapping, risks, everything. So that will help us to know beforehand or upfront about the challenges of that particular value chain and its viability. The second lesson is on profitability. We should focus on profitability when we design an intervention. If we want to if we want to see agriculture as a business. So, well, we should increase production and productivity, but we have to also think on the efficiency of the production, the marketing information, pricing, packaging. All this will enhance the profitability of that particular value chain. And the third lesson is on the inclusiveness, and inclusiveness is, as you said, it's about competitiveness as well as creating equity in the value chain, and that requires really a very targeted mechanism. The bank is taking a good initiative around this, for example, through this Enable Use for Africa, where we design project directly, focusing on the value, on the use. So the direct, deliberate, and target mechanism is so important. And we have seen a good result in Rwanda also, where the bank provide like through one cow per poor family. This is directly for targeting the poor, so it provided a very good example. Lastly, it's how we sustain our benefits from our development efforts. That require a very comprehensive package to put in place at the beginning of the intervention in general, and involving different stakeholders. So this is a clear message on sustainability we got from our evaluation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Girma, for the presentation. This was quite enlightening. We talked about the various things, including the enablers, the importance of value chain analysis, importance of focusing on profitability, responsiveness to markets, inclusiveness, sustainability. All these, I think, are key, to our success of improving the value chains. And just hold on those so that when it comes to questions, then you can also pose more questions on these areas that Dr. Girma has touched on. Now, I'm going to ask our panelists. First of all, I'll just give them 5 minutes each to talk to us about what they're doing, relevant to the topic that we're discussing today. And also later on, I'll come with questions, so that they can respond to the issues that came from the keynote address, as well as the presentation that has been made. So can I ask Mr. Felloni, I'll give you 5 minutes to talk about yourself.
Okay, thank you, and good morning again. So I'm going to talk not really about myself, but what we do in our organization that is relevant to the topic of value chain. So I am Deputy Director of the Independent Office of Evaluation of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD. So many of you might know what IFAD is, many might not know. So let me briefly say that IFAD is has the status of a specialized United Nations agency. It was founded in 1974, started the operation in 1978. De facto, it operates similar to an international financial institution. So the main instruments, and mainly IFAD works mainly, not only, but mainly with governments. It provides loans, sovereign loans to governments to implement projects in rural areas. So it's rural development projects, and IFAD has it's a quite unique organization, not just because it's UN and international financial institution, but also because it has a mandate to reduce rural poverty. That's a mandate of IFAD, very, very, very focused, although, of course, rural development entails many subsectors of intervention, but it's specialized on rural development. Now, the reason why I am related to the topic, we are related to the topic of value chains, is that our office is conducting a corporate level evaluation on IFAD's work on proper value chain development. So the interest of IFAD on value chain, when you have to put a periodization, it's always a bit arbitrary, but we could say that the topic of value chain entered IFAD official policies and strategies in 2007. Not that before there was no project trying to work on value chain, but really it entered our, let's say, strategic priority in 2007. And therefore, evaluation is trying to look at what has been accomplished from 2007 up to now on the topic of value chain. And as you can imagine, one of the big questions is also to what extent work on value chain has served the purpose of furthering IFAD's mandate, which is rural poverty reduction. And therefore, many of the topics that the colleague from the African Development Bank have highlighted, for example, when Girma was talking about inclusiveness, that's exactly one of the big issues that we want to look into our evaluation. Of course, the other elements that he has looked at, like the enables, are all very pertinent to what we are doing. Our evaluation is global, not just regional, because IFAD operates in all developing, at the moment we are active in 95 developing countries, so we are not just working in Africa, we also work, although Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa particularly, is the main recipient of our financial resources. But we do also work in regions and sub-regions, for example, in Asia, in the Pacific. We do work in Latin America. We work also in North Africa. And we do cover some country in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So you can see it's global. And our evaluation also tries to look at what has been done in several regions. In fact, we are looking at 27 countries, some of which we visit ad hoc through this evaluation. In some countries, we have done previous evaluation at the project level or country level. And in some countries, we're going to do desk studies. So this evaluation is still ongoing. And maybe later on, when I answer question, I might give you some hints of what initial findings are. We will complete this evaluation next year. And so that's why I'm particularly interested in being here and in learning from what the findings of our evaluation, but also learning from some of you, if particularly during the discussion, some of you want to ask questions or represent their own experience on the topic. I will stop here for a moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful. Now let me ask Dr. Koffi Amegbeto, to give us his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Koffi, as introduced. I'm a senior policy officer in the FAO Regional Office for Africa. I'm here very happy to make a statement on behalf of the FAO Assistant Director General, who is also the regional representative of the organization in the sub-Saharan Africa. For those of you who may not know, FAO has its head is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. It has its headquarters in Rome, Italy, and also it has regional offices on all the 5 continents, including what we have, the regional one for Africa, and several 4 sub-regional offices and several country offices. So I'm very pleased to maybe read to you the statement of the Assistant Director General very briefly. In a way, the increased globalization, within the framework of increased globalization, agriculture is just one part of an integrated value chain, which then poses serious challenges to smallholders in terms of participating in the market. At the same time, it may be difficult to developing countries which may not have bargaining power, or they are minor players to really participate and take advantage of this global market. So in terms of agriculture in Africa, agribusiness, agro-industry, and value chain development, these are strategically very important in ensuring a sustainable and resilient food system needed to deliver healthy diets, as mentioned in the introductions, and also to underpin sustainable poverty reduction at a very large scale. Agro-industry development are quite very important in achieving a number of sustainable development goals, including poverty eradication, elimination of hunger and malnutrition, achieving sustainable agriculture. Also, the goals number 8 on decent work and economic growth, infrastructure, industrialization and innovation, sustainable production and consumption, and so on, just to mention a few. I know you will notice some of the issues already discussed or presented by the keynote presenter. I just want to highlight some of the work FAO is doing on value chain development. In fact, FAO has a whole department, a whole strategic objective dedicated to enabling inclusive and efficient agricultural and food systems. So I will just highlight a few of some of the examples of ongoing work in the region. Currently, we are supporting the African Union. Of course, given the time limit, it will be very hard to do justice to the whole work that FAO does related to value chain development, but I'll mention the few. So presently, we are supporting the African Union in developing a public-private partnership framework for agribusiness. This will be used to provide guidance to policymakers on the design, implementation, and monitoring of the PPPs. We are strengthening the capacity of the regional economic communities, their secretariat, to facilitate the creation of an agricultural free trade area within their member states. I also want to mention the strengthening capacity of the African Union, again, to coordinate and monitor post-harvest losses on the continent, and then report to the head of state within the Malabo accountability framework. We are supporting the capacity development of regional agribusiness incubation and mentorship organization. In the case, the African Agribusiness Incubator Network. And similarly, developing the capacity of regional financial institutions like the Africa Rural and Agricultural Credit Association to improve access to finance for small and medium agricultural enterprises. With this said, FAO doesn't do this work alone, and for us, partnerships are key. And in that context, FAO has a framework of collaboration with the African Development Bank. Of course, this is not the only one, but I just want to mention this given the context. So the framework of collaboration covers 10 strategic areas. I would like to mention livestock value chain developments, post-harvest, agro-industry, and rural infrastructure, affirmative finance action for women in Africa, investment project preparations, and blue growth or blue economy, just to mention few. So all of these areas of collaboration with African Development Bank and also many other partners are key or will be key for the issue of developing agricultural value chains, creating jobs for the youth, and being inclusive to all gender categories. I will stop here. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Koffi, thank you very much. That was a good presentation. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Dr. Kojo Kondo. Also, I'm giving you about 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kojo Kondo. I'm representing the Vice President, Country Support for AGRA, who is actually engaged with our annual Agricultural Forum conference being held in Kigali, in Rwanda. This is Dr. Fadel Ndiam, who most of you might know. AGRA is the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, founded in 2006 by Rockefeller Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the late General Secretary of UN, Mr. Koffi Annan, peace to his soul. AGRA is founded to trigger a uniquely green revolution in Africa, to lift smallholder farmers from subsistence farming to market. That's the objective of AGRA. So AGRA ran its first 5-year strategy from 2007 to 2016, where AGRA developed capacities for African scientists in breeding, in soil science, in post-harvest management. So the first strategy was really developed, focused on technology development and capacity building. And after this phase, currently AGRA has a new 5-year strategy, $500 million strategy to now boost the productivities, take those technologies to farms, and increase profitability of the SMEs that are involved in the farming, and increase incomes for 30 million households in 11 countries. So AGRA achieves this through 3 main pillars: working directly with the government to strengthen their coordination, multi-stakeholder coordination and program coordination capacities, building capacities in government in monitoring and evaluation of their programs. Second pillar is on system development. Which has to do with strengthening agricultural value chains. That's where we really fit with this ongoing conference on value chain development. And the third one is on partnership. We believe that as an institution, we can't achieve our objectives by our own. We need to partner with those institutions pursuing the same visions and doing complementary investments in the field that we are. So partnership and inclusive finance development is one of the third pillar on which AGRA delivers. Coming to the focus of this conference, which is on value chain, we support the development or the strengthening of the enablers which the keynote speaker just spoke about, by having strong government engagement in the countries, in the value chain the development, also developing linkages between the actors in the value chain. The 5 enablers that the moderator just talked about cannot happen if you just talk about value chain and you don't talk about partnership between the actors. So there's no value chain. You know, if you don't have a partnership between the actors in a value chain, so you don't have a value chain at all. So from the beginning, farmers in planting a particular crop, they should know where is their crop going, who is taking that crop, what is the quality requirement of that market, and what is the price that market is going to pay them, and what are the volume that are required. So we work from the beginning, starting from the market to drive the production and the specification of the quality by supporting the business support services in the countries to drive this process through grants making. So in partnership also, we work with the banks to develop financial products that are suitable for the actors in the value chains. Currently in Burkina Faso and Mali, we are developing products with the Réseau des Caisses Populaires du Burkina Faso, with Coris Bank and EcoBank and all those the banks to finance the agriculture system. Since financing is a big challenge, you know, for the system. Yeah, that's what I just want to put in for the time being. We'll come into the debate. Yeah.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Konjo, for the presentation. Actually, I think we have heard what the FAO and the IFAD does. This is our opportunity also to network with these good gentlemen. I saw they had a bunch of business cards with them this morning. Make sure that you get a card of them so that when you need them, I think you should be able to reach them. Thank you very much. What we're going to do now is now to start interrogating, our panelists, and we have got about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, to the end of session. I'll start by asking them 1 or 2 questions, and then I'll open up, to the audience. I think I want to give as much time as possible to the audience so that we have an interactive, discussion of the things. Just to provoke, what we've heard, provoking thought and discussion from what we've heard, from the keynote, the presentation that we've heard. I want to ask you, Dr. Koffi, we have talked about these value chains and why they're important, and why I think as governments and countries we need to focus. We need to do the research that we've been doing about market sensitivity analysis that we've been told this morning. My question to you is, to what extent have the African countries used the agriculture value chains to produce value-added products and the services for improved production and participation in the markets? If you can just give me, that, and you can also probably add, what challenges have they faced in implementing the value addition?
Thank you very much. This is a very key question, but not easy to answer. But I'll give it a short. Basically, I would say that African countries have tried to use value chains to achieve social and economic development. But I would say personally that the effort is very limited compared to the need to use, for example, agricultural value chain to achieve development. So the effort have been tried, but very limited. obviously there are some success stories on the continent, which we can relate to or we can report on. But the fact of the matter is that value chain development as such has not spread as a wildfire, in order to achieve the development goals. In many cases, it is that either the policies are not coherent or efficient to address the issues in the value chain. The regulatory system is inadequate. And in some cases, the government, they don't have the right perception of the roles of the public and the private sectors. And so these are some of the factors that make it very difficult for value chain, especially the agricultural value chain, to be the driver of economic growth on the continent. I think I'll stop here.
This is very, very interesting that it's a paradox. When all of us are knowing that our governments are knowing that, this is a solution, to the food shortage problem we have, but then you're seeing that probably we're not engaging enough as governments, to deal with the challenges we've just mentioned. To me, it's a paradox. Let me also ask now to Dr. Konjo, similar question. Although more than half of the African population works in agriculture, which is also to me a paradox, the continent still relies on huge imports of processed foods such as rice, wheat, coming from Europe, wherever they can come from. Why this paradox, and how can this trend be reversed? What is it that we can do, to reverse? We have got some good young educated people, coming from our universities, agriculture universities, training. Why is this still a problem?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. This issue is now on every mouth in all the conferences, that we have the highest number of people in farming. Still, we rely on a lot of imports of wheat and rice, especially sugar, to satisfy our own consumption needs. And this is a real paradox. And where is this coming from? This is the first angle of the question. Why is this? First of all, I will talk about ourselves, about our production systems, which to a certain extent are very low, have low productivity, lack of adoption of the appropriate innovations, the mechanization, improved varieties, fertilizer. The rate of fertilizer application in Africa is lowest compared to the rest of the world. Though fertilizer should be applied in an appropriate manner, so you have good agronomic practices that should follow it. So we missed the opportunity of green revolution, which Asian countries seized at a point. Why do we miss that green revolution? We can also question that and also see the answer maybe into the structural reforms that our countries went through in the 1980s, where our governments have to withdraw from support to agriculture, and then NGOs starting to sprout and make their subsistence out of the money from abroad. So we missed the opportunity to produce for our market. The Asian countries seized the opportunity and then invaded our market with rice. And there are also progress in marine transports, lowering the cost of import. So those products substitute to our product. Rice is for women. I have done some surveys in Senegal. Women say rice is easier to cook. You just put it on fire, 2 minutes, you have food for your family. So energy-wise, rice is economic. It's more economical for the family compared to our millets, sorghum, which you have to pound and everything before you get the produce. families, children also likes rice than our traditional food. Those are the determinants of why we are used to rice today. Taking bread, we don't know bread before. Bread was brought to our countries by the colonial masters. That's their food. It's their food, and they bring their food with them. But we come to like more their food than themselves. That's one of our, for me personally, and not Agra, we Africans are inclined of liking things that come from abroad than our own thing. And bread has entered into our local economies, into the rural and the urban areas today, that to stop it will be very difficult. Now, how to go about it? How to reverse the situations? Today, all the governments are aware of that situation and trying now to push in adoption of the composite flour technologies for baking, for instance, by incorporating a certain percentage of our local products into wheat for baking purposes. You have the case of cassava in Ghana and Nigeria, where in Nigeria even a law has been passed to force bakeries to increase high-quality cassava flour into bakery. And in Senegal, you have the case of millets, where you have to increase at least 50% of millet flour into bread baking. That's already something. For rice, in Senegal, for instance, before you import a certain tonnage of rice from abroad, you have to sell a certain quantity of local rice. And now government are developing schemes to boost production of rice. We have these African-wide rice initiatives that are now being pushed by our government agenda. And mostly the Sahel regions, rice is consumed mostly in the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, Guinea. If you come to coast, it's a little bit less. We still eat our cassava and plantain and so on in the coast. But as you go to the Sahel, it's rice. They just change the soup, you know. So yeah, reforms. We need to make reforms to support consumption of local produce, promote our local product, give incentives in the production and the consumption for our local product, as it is the case now. I want to say something for Benin, for instance. Like we Africans like most imported product than what we have. In Benin, recently I graduated my high school in Benin. When you go out in the morning, you find porridge. In Cotonou, you have porridge with beans, fried beans. They call it ata or gaou in, fried beans, local food, nutritious. But today, you wake up in the morning to find local porridge and ata. It's difficult. It's disappearing. But Lebanese fast food and ice cream shops are growing. In why? I ask myself why we are facing these situations in our countries. We should come back to what we eat, to what we know. Thank you.
That's a very interesting intervention. But I still ask the question, what happened to import substitution? Because even if people love rice, Africa can grow rice and substitute. Let them eat what they like, if it's rice is what they like. But what we're trying to say is let's make sure that rice is being grown here in Africa. So why is this not happening? Because according to Dr. Girma, when he was making that presentation, he was talking about market analysis, sensitivity, and all those things. And those, I think, change in taste can also be one of the issues that as a producer has to understand that the market is changing, the taste is changing, then let's adapt the new technologies, let's adapt the new products. But we'll get back to them. I think we'll leave that to the audience. I want to now to ask Mr. Felloni, we know that the rising productivity and increasing the efficiency of agriculture value chains are fundamental in considering for the success of African economies, especially for the rural, economies. So my question to you is, how prepared are the African governments for the development of agriculture value chains that can meet the demands of the modern society? And I think this question is related to just the answers that Dr. Kojo was talking about.
Thank you for this question, Chair. And let me say that the answer that I can give is not just related to Africa, but you can generalize a little bit on government. You see, one of the main issues and I can relate it also to the experience of international financial institutions, because that's where I come from, and that's where many of you come from. Many of you come from the African Development Bank, some of you come from European Development Bank, European Investment Bank, some of you come from World Bank and others. And in reality, if you look at it, our business model fundamentally, of course there are some exceptions, but fundamentally is about financing programs, development programs, which are then implemented by national governments. So in reality, we are really bound to this business model. So our immediate client are governments, and we help them design programs and support the implementation of programs that in the end have to reach other partners, including private sector, including small farmers, including poor people, poor producers. So here, one of the big challenges, I think, is one part of it is a structural challenge, and the colleagues from Agra have mentioned it, so the need for reform. So partly is an issue of government needing reforms, new policies, better policies. It could be trade policies, it could be policies that make the functioning of a certain state-based enterprise, for example, or even some marketing boards, for those that still exist, commodity marketing boards, more efficient, paying prices which are more advantageous for small producers. So that's one part of the sort of policy, if you want, policy environment, enabling environment. The other one is also the capacity of government agencies to work on value chain projects. And here, consider that working on a value chain means working with several types of partners. It's not just the producers, it's also the processor, it's also those working in transportation, it's also the aggregators, the packagers, the exporter, and so on. So first of all, you have a multiplicity of actors intervening here, and the other big challenge is the private sector. Many of these partners belong to the private sector, not to the public sector. We see it every time when we do evaluation of our projects, for example, like IFAD, because again, the business model is working with public agencies. We do find staff in public agency, and some of them are well prepared, good technical specialists. They might be good irrigation engineers. They might be good in livestock development. You name it. Some of them are exceptionally good in the subject matter. Very few of them, however, have been working on a value chain, particularly have experience working in private sectors. And when you look at items so fundamental for value chain development, and I refer to the presentation that Girma from African Development Bank did before, when you look at things such as profitability, one of his statements was not just increasing production, but ensuring profitability. Then, when we look at those aspects, when we look at the capacity of preparing solid business cases that convince private sector actors to participate, that's where we find some of the deficiencies. We find it, and by the way, to be quite frank with you, the deficiency is not just with the government parts that implement. The deficiency sometimes is also in our own organization, because many of our staff, including many of those who are here, have mostly been working on projects in the public sector. And so we might have worked on agriculture, but mostly was for production improvement, boosting yields from new varieties, or boosting yields through irrigation. But really, not many of us have experienced working with the private sector. So I would say the challenges here are, one, structurally to improve, first of all, improve the policies and make sure that policies are enacted, because there's too many policies in many countries that simply are not followed by action implementation, number one. And number two, I think there's a big need of capacity development and skills on how to work on a value chain, on how to enable value chain actors to proficiently collaborate and work with each other and make sure that the value chain in its whole segment and overall is profitable. But also, I would say also a little bit of modesty from our side, working in international organizations. We are the ones also who need a little bit of capacity building on how to better design and how to better support the national counterparts in implementing projects. Thank you.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Let me now open, the discussion to the audience. But I want you to remember that there were 5 presentations. We had a keynote address that talked about nutrition, and we had another, presentation from Girma. So I want you, to ask as many questions as possible, to what you have heard, coming from the higher table. I'll first of all take 3 questions, and then I'll allow them, to answer those questions, and then I'll come back for more questions. When I point you, I want you to tell me who you are, what institution you're representing, and then your question. Let's try to be as precise as possible because we don't have too much time. Let me start from the gentleman in the middle.
Thank you. Je vais parler en français.
Allez-y.
Alors, je me nomme Bansé Rodolphe. Je suis membre d'un centre d'analyse des politiques publiques. Donc, je viens du Burkina. Alors, j'ai beaucoup apprécié l'intervention de M. Kodjo sur les interventions de son institution au Burkina Faso. C'est vrai, aujourd'hui, nous sommes en train d'aller vers la création d'une banque de l'agriculture. Alors, donc, ça viendra un peu booster le financement donc, de l'agriculture, sachant bien qu'il y a près de 60 à 80% de la population qui est dans l'agriculture. Alors, donc, le développement de l'agriculture va permettre vraiment le développement du pays. Mais, par contre, il y a quelques préoccupations que je n'ai pas senties, en tout cas évoquées dans les différentes interventions. Il y a la question de la propriété et de la sécurisation foncière. Alors, aujourd'hui, il y a assez de conflits dans pas mal de nos pays sur les questions foncières. Et si nous n'arrivions pas donc à assurer, à trouver un mécanisme pour pouvoir exercer l'activité agricole dans la sécurité, c'est bien évident que les politiques ne vont pas marcher. Donc, premier point. Deuxième élément, c'est la question donc de la culture bio. Nous avons parlé beaucoup d'innovation. C'est vrai qu'il faut innover, mais si nous ne prenons pas en compte la question donc, de la santé, bien sûr, on peut produire en abondance, mais s'il y a des éléments comme les pesticides ou des éléments pour pouvoir donc produire assez en abondance, nous allons manquer. Et c'est une opportunité pour l'Afrique. Nous avons assez de terres, nous pouvons donc produire bio, et la production bio peut bien s'exporter, contrairement donc à d'autres productions qui viennent d'ailleurs. Alors pour terminer, c'est la question d'intégration. Des politiques d'intégration dans nos pays. Il est important, il y a des pays qui ont de fortes potentialités, c'est-à-dire un avantage comparatif en termes de terres. Il y a d'autres en termes de personnes, de bras valides. Et je pense bien quand on prend le Burkina et la Côte d'Ivoire, on peut bien expliquer donc ce cas. Alors, il faut que les pays africains se mettent ensemble. Là où il y a l'avantage comparatif, je prends l'Afrique centrale, ils ont besoin peut-être de personnes, de bras valides, de personnes de compétences. On peut focaliser. Et puis, l'Afrique nourrit l'Afrique. Je pense qu'on pourrait aller dans ce sens, au lieu que chaque pays individuellement cherche donc à se nourrir. Alors, voici quelques points que je voudrais donc évoquer et je vous remercie.
Alors, je vais prendre une autre question, 2 questions de plus, mais essayez d'être courte, s'il vous plaît.
Je me présente, je m'appelle Al-Hassan Khan, je viens du Sénégal. Je suis dans un projet de sécurité alimentaire financé par la Banque africaine de développement. J'ai une question à poser à Madame Wambui par rapport à la nutrition, la stratégie de la banque sur la nutrition. Bon, en fait, ce qu'on remarque, c'est que effectivement, c'est important de parler de l'aspect multisectoriel de la nutrition. Par exemple, au Sénégal, il y a beaucoup de projets financés par plusieurs bailleurs et souvent il y a une absurdité qui sort, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup d'interventions dans une même zone en matière de nutrition, mais on voit que les indicateurs toujours sont alarmants. Je pense qu'elle a parlé de la situation de l'Afrique en global qui peut être déclinée au niveau des pays séparément. Donc on voit qu'il y a un retard de croissance. Moi, ce que je pense, c'est que l'aspect multisectoriel est pris en compte, mais des fois, il y a des facteurs culturels qui posent problème. Est-ce que la stratégie de la banque prend en compte cet aspect? Parce que dans le nord du Sénégal, où il y a des aménagements hydro-agricoles, il y a beaucoup de bailleurs de fonds, on s'est rendu compte qu'il y a dans certaines zones, malgré les efforts fournis, toujours la situation nutritionnelle est alarmante. Alors, comme on parle de leçons apprises, est-ce qu'il ne faudrait pas tirer les leçons de pourquoi ça ne marche pas? Et par rapport aux évaluations justement indépendantes menées dans le cadre de la banque, je pense qu'il est important d'adresser cette question et de voir pourquoi, malgré les efforts fournis en matière de santé, assainissement, agriculture, ça ne marche pas. La situation nutritionnelle des femmes et des enfants se dégrade. Et je pense que dans cette stratégie, il faudrait au départ, au préalable, régler cette question et expliquer pourquoi ça ne marche pas avant de consentir de gros investissements en sachant qu'après on aura des difficultés. La deuxième question, si vous permettez, par rapport aux chaînes de valeur, on a parlé de rentabilité par rapport à la présentation de Girma. Mais ce qu'on voit aussi en Afrique, et particulièrement au Sénégal que je maîtrise le plus, c'est que souvent il y a un rapport de force différent entre ceux qui produisent, les acteurs qui sont au niveau de différents maillons des chaînes de valeur. Aujourd'hui, le producteur africain, il produit, il fournit des efforts. D'un autre côté, on voit quelqu'un qui ne fait pas d'efforts, qui tire plus profit de cette situation-là. Et dans la stratégie, à mon avis, de la mise en œuvre des chaînes de valeur, je pense que c'est une question aussi qu'il faudrait examiner pour éviter que finalement, que celui qui est au bout de la chaîne puisse tirer plus de profit par rapport à celui qui fournit l'effort. Et ces questionnements, de plus en plus, ne sont pas pris en compte au moment de la conception des projets. Et on a parlé du système de suivi et évaluation. Et souvent, les difficultés qu'on a, c'est que nous, on se soucie au sein du projet de voir un peu ce qui marche. Mais quand on veut prendre en compte l'environnement global, ça demande énormément de moyens par rapport à un projet qui est limité dans son intervention. Et comment intégrer ça dans la stratégie aussi des projets en matière de chaîne de valeur. Merci.
Merci, mais s'il vous plaît, il faut essayer d'être à l'écoute. Comme ça, nous allons permettre à nos amis de poser ces questions aussi. Alors, j'ai vu, il y avait un bas d'une dame. Il faut prendre. Madame là, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, le micro à ce niveau. Oui, moi c'est...
Après vous, madame, s'il vous plaît.
Ok, moi c'est Kabore Kouka. Je travaille pour une ONG au niveau du Burkina qu'on appelle le GRED, spécifiquement sur un projet sur les questions de gouvernance et d'inclusion dans les chaînes de valeur agricoles, spécifiquement sur la filière lait, les produits forestiers non ligneux et le niébé. Donc ma question adressée à M. Kodjo, que je connais très bien, c'est les nouveaux acteurs au niveau du développement agricole. Surtout chez nous, on les appelle les agro-businessmen, contre, je dirais, versus l'agriculture familiale. On parle de nutrition, Madame Wambui a parlé de nutrition. Pourtant, on sait que c'est au niveau de ces ménages-là qu'on trouve les personnes à faible revenu, les personnes moins informées et malnutries, et les enfants malnutris. Quelle est la position d'Agra sur cette question de nouveaux acteurs? Et mon compatriote a parlé de l'accaparement des terres par ces acteurs qui ne produisent pas. Donc ça devient nos défis. Et le Sénégal a parlé du pouvoir. Et le producteur, en termes d'information, en termes de pouvoir de négociation, n'a pas le même niveau que les autres acteurs, surtout par exemple les commerçants. Et dans l'analyse aussi, c'est des aspects aussi qu'il faut prendre en compte dans ça. Ok, vraiment, merci bien.
Alors, je vais permettre la madame là pour parler et après ça, je vais donner la parole pour répondre aux questions.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Je suis docteur Adaye, enseignante-chercheur à l'Université Philosophe-Boigny. Ma question s'adresse à monsieur Kodjo de Agra. Tout à l'heure, dans votre présentation, vous aviez dit que l'un des objectifs de Agra, c'est de permettre aux petits producteurs de passer de l'agriculture de subsistance à une agriculture productiviste. Alors, j'ai une simple petite question. Est-ce à dire que Agra fait la promotion des organismes génétiquement modifiés, sachant très bien qu'il y a des études scientifiques qui ont démontré qu'ils sont nocifs à la santé? Et si oui, quels sont les pays, surtout africains, les pays de la CEDEAO qui ont adopté les OGM dans leur programme de développement agricole? Merci.
Thank you very much. We have those 4 questions. I'll come back to the audience. I'll allow, there's so many questions that are going to Dr. Kojo. The first one was on, on security, integration, and pesticides. I think if you could take that. And then there was our colleague from Senegal that also is asking a question on the bank strategy as it concerns, the culture, because one of the preventing factors is, the culture that we Africans have. We can't give women rights to land and all those things, and those are impediments, to what we're trying to do. And then there's been a question on the governance of value chains. I think it's also going to you. And the last one is what AGRA is doing, in communicating the things that we do in your area.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur et tous les participants pour les questions. Je vais commencer par les aborder une à une, en commençant par la question de la législation foncière. Dans notre travail, j'ai parlé de 3 piliers. Le premier pilier, on travaille avec le gouvernement, engagement avec le gouvernement par rapport à tout ce qui concerne les réformes nécessaires pour pouvoir, n'est-ce pas, booster l'agriculture au niveau du pays. Et dans les réformes, donc c'est les réformes au niveau des semences, la loi semencière, qui est déjà une intégration puisqu'on a une loi régionale de la CEDEAO qui n'a besoin que d'être domestiquée dans le pays, et les mesures que cette loi requiert doivent être prises dans le pays, donc nous accompagnons un peu ça. La loi sur les engrais aussi de la CEDEAO pour la région ouest-africaine qui aussi a besoin d'être appuyée. Maintenant, c'est la loi sur la qualité, le contrôle de qualité des engrais, les mesures à prendre en compte. Bon, maintenant, le code d'investissement agricole, c'est AGRA qui a appuyé ce processus et c'est passé au Parlement récemment. Donc, voilà. Donc, il y a d'autres. Nous sommes en train de travailler aussi avec le gouvernement sur la subvention, l'amélioration du programme de subvention des engrais, des intrants agricoles, semences et engrais. Donc, nous travaillons par rapport à ça. Et les questions foncières, si le gouvernement juge que c'est quelque chose qu'on doit travailler avec eux, ça va ressortir et nous allons travailler dans ce sens avec le gouvernement du Burkina Faso, du Mali et des 11 pays dans lesquels nous travaillons. Pour l'intégration, vraiment, nos pays aussi, comme vous l'avez si bien dit, nos pays doivent s'asseoir pour voir dans quel domaine moi je suis fort, quel est mon avantage comparatif. Je vois la recherche du Burkina faire la recherche sur comment promouvoir le manioc, par exemple. Et le Mali qui produit le manioc vers Ségou, les brindilles. Ce n'est pas votre domaine, ça. Donc, vous confiez ça aux pays côtiers, le Ghana, la Côte d'Ivoire, et ils produisent du manioc pour vous envoyer par le train les infrastructures qu'on doit développer. Si c'est pour faire les attaquets, que tout le monde commence par aimer, et que la Côte d'Ivoire a le brevet, et les Chinois aussi, ils ont un, mais ils ont appelé ça autrement. Donc, voilà, donc c'est un peu cette intégration que nous devons vraiment voir. Est-ce qu'on doit produire les fourrages dans les pays côtiers où ça pousse comme ça, en l'air libre, les andropogons, là, ça pousse comme ça, pour vous envoyer pour l'élevage, parce que vous êtes très fort dans l'élevage, parce qu'il y a des années qui viennent où les bœufs, où le bétail périt au Niger, par exemple, alors qu'il y a des fourrages qui brûlent au feu. Voilà, on peut réfléchir à cette intégration. Maintenant, au niveau de l'Union africaine, il y a cette intégration des lois régionales qui reste à faire. On n'a pas encore une loi continentale sur les semences. Donc, une semence homologuée en Ouganda ne peut pas venir comme ça en Afrique de l'Ouest sans être encore testée et autres. Donc, il y a aussi on doit pouvoir aller vers l'intégration même continentale. Voilà. Donc, ça, c'est pour la première. Par rapport au bio, le bio, c'est beaucoup de matières organiques, hein, vous savez, non? beaucoup de matière organique et beaucoup, it is labor intensive. L'agriculture biologique demande beaucoup de main-d'œuvre et beaucoup de matière organique. C'est bon pour les potagers, hein. On peut bien faire le bio, mais quand tu vas mettre la matière organique pour 5 hectares de niébé, de sorgho, de maïs et bio, maintenant je ne sais pas quel marché veut l'haricot bio. Et on doit étudier tout ça. Ça, c'est pour nous, notre consommation, les sorgho, le mil, ça, on a besoin de l'agriculture conventionnelle, qui est écologique, qui respecte l'environnement. On applique les engrais, mais en utilisant les bonnes pratiques culturelles. L'engrais, c'est comme l'aspirine, on ne le prend pas le ventre vide. Tu le prends vide, tu l'ulcère. L'engrais, c'est la même chose pour le sol. On ne met pas l'engrais sur le sol nu. Il faut la matière organique d'abord. Ces lois-là, on doit pouvoir les enseigner et les appliquer. Et on aura ce qu'on doit avoir normalement sans dégrader nos sols et le préserver pour les générations futures à venir. Les nouveaux venants, l'agriculture, on peut dire commerciale, hein, ceux qui, moi, quelqu'un qui prend la terre et qui ne la cultive pas, il fait du mal. Mais s'il l'achète, il la cultive et il nourrit la population, pour moi, pas grand, hein, pour moi, il n'y a pas de problème. Il produit, il vend, il fait l'agri-business, c'est son business. Tout le monde est libre de faire des activités économiques, n'est-ce pas? Et moi, je peux décider que je vais faire des plantations. Mais pour faire plantation, j'ai besoin de terre. Si quelqu'un veut me donner la terre en gage, ou ça, comment on dit, me louer ça sur 100 ans pour que je paye des redevances, ou s'il veut me vendre sa cash pour prendre son argent, ça, c'est sa liberté. Maintenant, il faut qu'il y ait des lois dans le pays qui régissent tout ça, les propriétés foncières, comment ça s'acquiert et autres. Mais il ne faut pas prendre la terre et puis l'hypothéquer et puis pour les gens au fin, parce qu'aujourd'hui, on a 2/3 de nos superficies qui sont là, qui ne sont pas cultivées. Et tout le monde parle de ça, c'est un grand potentiel pour nous, pour développer notre agriculture. Voilà. Est-ce que Agra fait la promotion de bio et des OGM? Non.
Donc, if you can speed up a little bit so that we also give the audience some
OK. Est-ce que Agra fait la promotion des OGM? Non. On n'a pas encore fait la promotion d'aucun maïs ou de quelque chose d'OGM. Nous travaillons avec les variétés que les compagnies semencières des pays ont. Nous, on ne produit pas les variétés. Les compagnies semencières et la recherche du pays sortent des variétés qu'ils homologuent dans leur catalogue national des variétés des plantes. Et nous, on ne fait que voir quelle est la variété que le marché veut. Vous-même, vous l'identifiez, le marché le demande, et les gens se mettent ensemble pour produire les semences et les productions pour satisfaire ce marché. C'est un peu ça. Nous, on n'est pas businessman. OK? Voilà. Donc, bon, l'analyse des coûts dans les chaînes de valeur qui bénéficie, à mon collègue sénégalais, qui bénéficie au fait de la manne au niveau de ces chaînes de valeur. Quand on fait les études en Afrique, c'est souvent les supermarchés. Pour les choses qui vont dans les supermarchés, c'est dans les supermarchés, même dans le monde entier, hein, c'est dans les supermarchés que la grande marge se trouve. Maintenant, si on est vraiment en partenariat, comme l'un des enablers des chaînes de valeur, et on est en partenariat, le supermarché est là, le producteur est là, les fournisseurs de trains sont là, les banques et finances sont là, les transformateurs sont là, les transporteurs sont là, on établit les coûts et on voit la marge au kilo du produit. En ce moment, ça devient clair pour tout le monde. Toi, tu gagnes plus. Non, tu peux aussi augmenter mon prix comme ça. C'est ça les négociations qui se font. Et je pense que c'est comme ça les grandes chaînes de valeur marchent dans les pays que nous envions aujourd'hui où tout le monde veut aller. Ça, c'est encore notre défaut de l'Afrique. Donc, en Suisse, par exemple, les montres, c'est une industrie où l'université fait la recherche et ils ont aussi une marge là-dessus, où ceux qui font les fabrications des équipements et autres, en miniature, aussi font leur marge là-dessus. Et les distributions, ceux qui sont dans la distribution aussi font leur marge dessus. Et ça marche jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Merci.
Thank you very much. I think there was also a question, I think, to Wambui. They were talking about the bank strategy. There was a question on nutrition.
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. The question is quite specific, and I would first of all agree that if the bank strategy should take account of the cultural differences, and the point you made about looking at the strategy that it's not working. Thank you for letting us know that, and need to look at it before we commit more resources. Now we have someone in the room, Dr. Maimouna Diop, who is working in Senegal, also happens to be Senegalese. Because that was quite a specific question. Maimouna, do you want to respond to?
Merci beaucoup. Donc, par rapport à la question posée par notre collègue du Sénégal sur la stratégie de la banque et le fait que malgré tous les investissements et tous les partenaires qui sont en place, on a toujours quand même encore des problèmes de malnutrition. C'est juste pour lui dire que la banque donc, vient d'avoir sa stratégie, son plan multisectoriel de nutrition qui vient d'être approuvé. Et tous ces éléments sont pris en compte puisqu'on a 3 axes d'intervention dont le premier axe sera l'aspect de leadership et de gouvernance pour la nutrition. Le deuxième axe sur comment intégrer la nutrition à travers le portefeuille de la banque, notamment au niveau de l'agriculture, de l'eau, de la protection sociale et la santé. Et l'autre axe qui sera vraiment l'accès aux aliments nutritifs. Et c'est cet axe qui va vraiment se concentrer sur tout ce qui est chaîne de valeur dont on est en train de parler. Maintenant, il est clair qu'on a beaucoup d'autres points qui font que aussi ça ne marche pas. Et c'est en termes de politique, parce que nous avons des aspects de, par exemple, de sécheresse occurrente qui arrivent régulièrement dans certains pays. Nous avons aussi le contexte de fragilité qu'il faut prendre en compte. Nous avons aussi tous les aspects de coordination dans la manière dont les ressources pour la nutrition sont réparties, parce que vous l'avez même dit, on a dans certaines zones, on a plusieurs partenaires, c'est pas du tout coordonné, on n'a pas d'impact, il n'y a pas de bénéfice. Donc je crois qu'il y a tous ces aspects à prendre en compte. Et pour ce qui concerne le Sénégal, je sais qu'on a différents programmes, notamment les programmes du Programme mondial de sécurité alimentaire, les programmes liés à la résilience liée à la sécheresse dans les pays du Sahel, qui sont des programmes qui ont pris en compte, qui ont essayé d'intégrer la nutrition au niveau donc, de leurs interventions. Et ça me ramène un peu à l'évaluation et à une question que je voulais d'ailleurs poser à M. Kumbi, puisque je vois que au niveau de la banque, on commence maintenant à mieux intégrer, mais l'évaluation qui a été faite sur les programmes d'agriculture ne s'est pas du tout occupée des aspects de nutrition. Il n'y a pas une analyse d'impact derrière la nutrition. Pourtant, on commence à avoir dans beaucoup de programmes d'agriculture des indicateurs pour la nutrition. Mais on met des indicateurs de la nutrition, on ne budgétise pas assez bien la nutrition et on n'a pas d'intervention conséquente. Et au bout du compte, souvent, on a des problèmes en termes d'impact. C'est vrai qu'il faut la profitabilité, que ce soit des activités de business qui donnent du profit, mais on peut avoir et le profit et avoir l'impact social aussi attendu. Merci.
Yeah, let me say that we are supposed to run up to 11 o'clock because 11:30 there's another session that is going to start. But I feel that it's going to be injustice, to just cut now. So let me take the last 3 questions. But please, don't ask 2 questions. Just ask your best question, not 2. 1. And I also want to encourage women to ask questions because you have heard in the presentation that nothing is going to change if women are not involved. So I would love, to hear questions from women. So I'll take the gentleman here. Just 1 question, please, not 2. Give him the mic. And then after you, I'll come to you. And then my brother here. And then the lady there, in that order. 1 question only.
Ok, je me présente. Je suis Traoré Namblé, réseau ivoirien des évaluateurs. Alors, moi, ma question, nous savons déjà que la moitié de la population africaine travaille dans le secteur agricole. Malgré ça, nous n'arrivons pas à couvrir, c'est-à-dire les besoins en alimentation du continent. Alors, ma question s'adresse à chacune des organisations. Compte tenu des conséquences du changement climatique, il se trouve par exemple que des pluies, au moment où elles doivent venir, elles n'arrivent pas, ou bien quand lorsqu'elle arrive, elle détruit carrément les récoltes. Alors, du point de vue stratégique, qu'est-ce que les organisations qui sont là ont prévu ou bien ont proposé au gouvernement avec qui elles travaillent pour anticiper sur une éventuelle chute de la production qui est déjà maigre? C'est ma question.
Merci, je m'appelle Monsunda Mikalande Richard, je suis sénateur. Mais avant d'être sénateur, j'ai écouté un peu les problèmes de développement. Monsieur le modérateur, c'est difficile ce qui m'habite parce que poser une question, c'est comme si j'aurais compris tout ce qui s'est dit. Et c'est pourquoi je vais peut-être pas relancer le débat, mais seulement dire que tout ce qu'il y a eu comme intervention m'a laissé sur ma faim. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il y a 60% de la population de l'Afrique. Il y a plus de 65% de terrains durables. Et nous avons l'eau et tout ce qu'il y a. Et je ne sais pas si c'est parce que l'agriculteur en Afrique est confondu aux paysans. Parce que tout Africain est paysan. Et c'est peut-être ce qui fait en sorte que quand l'industrialisation est venue pour faire vendre les produits de l'extérieur, que l'Africain a confondu que l'agriculture n'est seulement une source de revenus, mais l'agriculture, c'est aussi tout ce qui peut lui donner la possibilité de vivre, augmenter l'espérance de vie et le reste. De tout ce que j'ai entendu comme intervention, je commence par Mme Wambui, qui a décrit la malnutrition, et vous avez même interdit de ne pas applaudir, parce que le tableau était tellement sombre, mais nous avons quand même applaudi pour son intervention. Malgré l'Africain est habitué à rire, même quand il y a un décès. Monsieur le modérateur, quand je vois tout ce que je disais, tout ce qu'il y a comme intervention, la question que je me pose, ou que je peux poser à l'ensemble, notamment la Banque mondiale, est-ce que vous avez fait des études au niveau de l'agriculture? Parce que pour développer l'agriculture, il faut d'abord connaître ce qu'il y a. Avez-vous fait des études de milieu? Avez-vous cherché à comprendre avant d'amener de nouvelles méthodes? Avez-vous compris pourquoi, au jour d'aujourd'hui, nous parlons de nourrir l'Afrique? Si on parle aujourd'hui de nourrir l'Afrique, ça veut dire que l'Afrique n'est pas encore nourrie. Et de toutes les interventions que j'ai entendues, les malnutritions en Afrique, on ne les trouve pas en Europe. Le manque de nourriture, c'est l'Afrique qui importe de l'Europe. L'Europe n'importe pas la nourriture de l'Afrique. Et toutes les études qui sont faites au niveau de l'Afrique, mais aucune évolution, même depuis René Dubon, qui avait dit que l'Afrique était mal partie, mais l'Afrique n'a pas encore bougé. Alors je voudrais avoir une petite réponse. Que devient l'agriculture en Afrique? Et quand est-ce que l'Afrique aura son agriculteur pour pouvoir se développer? Merci.
Thank you. Good question. Let me have you, and then after him, the lady there.
Good morning. Désiré Nzi, représentant de la société Buller, société suisse qui fournit des solutions de transformation de matières premières agricoles. On a parlé de l'agriculture, on a parlé de land ownership, de pratiques agricoles. On a aussi parlé de l'accès au marché et on se rend compte que la valeur est lorsqu'on arrive à accéder au marché. Et pour accéder au marché, il faut produire des biens dont le consommateur a besoin. Ma question est donc la suivante. Aujourd'hui, on a une agriculture en Afrique qui est très, on va dire, basique. On a besoin de transformer nos produits pour pouvoir les exporter ou alors pour pouvoir ou éviter d'importer d'autres produits. Quelle est la stratégie de la banque ou en tout cas, quelles sont les actions concrètes que la banque a pour favoriser la transformation locale et l'accessibilité à toutes ces solutions dans le pays et dans la région? Merci.
Merci. Et après ça, je vais vous donner la parole.
Good morning. My name is Soumya. I'm from the Industry and Trade Development Department at the bank. First, it's just a quick comment. We keep talking about linkages and the onus that women have on nutrition, but unless men and women both partner to make nutrition possible for the families, I believe you're putting too much pressure on the women of the world. Second is, you all are in leadership positions in your own organizations. You spoke about the importance of political will and somebody taking ownership in the organization. In your experience, what have been some of the bottlenecks of making change happen at your influential level? Thank you.
Je suis M. Ndoufou de la Maison de la Société Civile du Centre. Nous travaillons à Boaké et nous sommes confrontés à une crise de l'eau. Depuis pratiquement 6 mois, l'eau ne circule plus. Nous n'avons plus d'adduction d'eau de manière régulière. Et donc, c'est une question récurrente. Nous cherchons des solutions durables pour ne pas rester dans cette crise. Et donc, nous voulons attirer l'attention d'abord des partenaires présents sur cette crise-là. Cependant, je voudrais poser une question à tous nos panélistes, leur demander s'ils ont des réunions, des concertations mensuelles au moins pour suivre et évaluer le travail sur la chaîne des valeurs agricoles par rapport à tout ce qui vient d'être dit. Ceci va leur permettre certainement de coordonner davantage leurs actions et de pouvoir mettre en place une stratégie plus globale. Je pense qu'il y a la décennie de l'Afrique, de l'agriculture familiale qui a été engagée et jusqu'à présent, on voit qu'il y a des résultats qui sont encore insatisfaisants. Et donc, il y a beaucoup de travail à faire à ce niveau. Il y a la PANAF qui travaille à promouvoir l'agriculture familiale, mais elle manque de ressources. La mobilisation des ressources devient difficile parce que les partenaires travaillent sur beaucoup de projets, mais spécifiquement, il n'y a pas un programme global sur la question de l'agriculture familiale. Et donc, cela rend difficile le travail des chaînes de valeur au niveau des populations. Et je voudrais terminer pour dire que si nous pouvons passer du PPP, c'est-à-dire du partenariat public-privé, à un PPPC, c'est-à-dire avec les communautés, donc partenariat public-privé-communauté, cela nous arrangerait davantage parce que les communautés ont leur contribution, ils ont aussi leur avis à apporter et ils peuvent apporter de très grandes valeurs ajoutées à ce que nous sommes en train d'apporter comme débat. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Actually, we have run out of time. I think it has been a very interesting debate. And as I said earlier on, they're still here. For those of us who still have got questions to ask them, we can still ask them. They're also going to be here. We have gotten, I think we have run over our time by almost like a quarter of an hour. So I'm going to ask, the panel, to answer the questions as quickly as possible within a space of 5 minutes for all of you. There were a number of questions, that have been raised, and I'm sure you also have been taking notes. There was a question on whether the bank has done some studies, to transform, and why is it that with all the resources that we have, in agriculture, as the statistics are showing, we are still failing to transform. What is the problem? Why is Africa still importing food? There was a question on the bank strategy, on transformation. Is it working? There was a question on political will, that change can only come if there's political will. And then the question that comes from the civil society organization. So if you can just answer very briefly, and then after that we close.
The non-agriculture person, so I can say, I think there was also a question on the effects of climate change and what that will do to an already low level of production. And I can start from there, and I can answer from a water perspective. You recall that when I made a presentation, there were certain areas where we had certain sub-regions where the malnutrition was higher than others. And water in my view, water needs to feature more much more in agriculture as a sector. Africa is the second driest continent. There's no way we are going to achieve our agriculture objectives unless we really do water management very differently. The region already a very low endowment. You have the Sahel, you have the Horn of Africa, you have the Kalahari. You've seen, what's happening there and how that's affecting nutrition and agriculture. But we also have now very recurrent floods and droughts. So you have more floods now, more drought. So I talked about drought. What flooding does, it comes and destroys our produce. It comes and destroys our infrastructure. So if we don't manage water well, it will continue to impact negatively. Now, what is the bank doing and other organizations is developing resilience infrastructure. We have to develop resilience where, again, many countries in Africa overall has a very low level of storage. The storage per capita is very low, and no country develops unless we have really significantly higher levels of storage. That is how we can, this type of storage, whether it's through physical infrastructure, whether it's through natural bodies like wetlands that also conserve water. That is what can tide us through drought. So investing in storage, strengthening resilience, and we really need to develop our groundwater for irrigation and other purposes. So enhance role of water. I also wanted to respond, while I have the floor, respond the question on leadership, what we are doing as leaders. First, I agree with you that balancing the responsibilities and division of labor between men and women, and actually even in our institutions and others, today you have more men in positions of authority than women. Men are the ones that need to make sure that women come in. So we need to work with men, otherwise we are not going to be able to deal with. In terms of leadership and political will, I believe that the bank, there is a lot of, the video we watched, the president and his support and involvement in these issues. Obviously, he's an agriculture person, as you know. But from where I sit, what do I see? I see that we still, this is not the bank, it's the bank and other institutions. We struggle to work across sectors. The examples we gave, we need to have many more such examples because the benefits are clear. On the client side, they are also organized as such. There's Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water, Ministry of, so it's not just in the bank and other external support agencies, it's also on the client side. There was a question about that the public sector not having the skills to work with the private sector, and in fact, ourselves as organizations needing to develop that. You're aware of the bank's non-sovereign window and the need to bring in skills to be able to support that. I believe this is probably common to other sectors as well, but we don't find good, ready projects waiting to be implemented. I think that there is need to invest for the bank and others to invest in project preparation so that we can reduce the time between the idea of having a project and approving and it becoming effective. And I think the question of capacity has been already raised. Thank you.
I think it looks like you have covered all the questions, unless I'm mistaken. Because I'm worried the next session is starting in 10 minutes time. So you need to go out and have, some coffee break and come back. So you have an opportunity, to talk to the presenters, at the tea break or lunch. But for now, allow me to close the session. I think all of us have seen that this was a very helpful, insightful session. I myself enjoyed the session, and I hope you did the same. Can we give a round of applause to our presenters? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. See you into the next session. Thank you.